prices in Vancouver, those have been dropping all year, and then now we're dropping even faster, while in Victoria, where home prices have been up all year, is looking like we're going to see a year-over-year price decline coming. Hey there, welcome back to Prairie Real Estate. My name is 𝗵𝗻𝗱, real estate agent in Regina, and that is my trusted assistant, Matilda. This is my monthly Canadian real estate market update for November 2025. We're focusing on Vancouver and Victoria in this one. If you want to see other cities in Canada, Regina, Saskatoon, Montreal, Toronto, etc., I'll link those videos in the description below. And I got to start off by saying, yeah, sorry, BC Lions fan. Tommy Neal caught that football. You got sour grapes. I don't care what your owner says. Riders are going to the Grey Cup. Let's give you another one of my terrible bad dad jokes to start this video off. What do you call cheese if it's not yours? Nacho cheese. If you have a terrible joke I can use in the future, put it in the comments below. Let's get you up to speed on the Canadian real estate market. Well, in Victoria, prices have been up all year long, but it's looking like we might see the first ever price decline this year. Not this month, might be coming next month. The boomer is running out of money. That was a comment I got in my last month's video. Well, let's dive into the stats and see what's going on. There's almost 620 homes sold last month in Victoria. That is actually a reasonably strong month. Yes, down versus last year, down versus the 5-year average. Let's rewind the clock here. As you can see, obviously better than 23, 22, not anywhere close to 21 or 2020, but similar to 2019, 2018, 2017, not close to 2016 though. With 2 months left in the year, probably going to see around 6,800 homes sold in Victoria. If they don't get to 6,800, this will make it the second worst year for home sales in the last 10 years. Been consistently soft for home sales, but consistent at least in Victoria. So let's answer the question. The boomers run out of money? Not sure we can say that yet. 1,100 new listings is, well, down from last year, actually up a little bit versus the 5-year. You can see though that, around 1,100 listings through the course of the last couple of years, relatively consistent, a little on the high side, but not a crazy amount of new listings. Now, what I think is really interesting looking at the new listing stats, and there's a few cities in Canada that are like this, that up or down, new listings don't really change much. Victoria is one of them. Now, we're probably going to end the year with about 15,000 new listings for the year, more than last year, 14,500. But then just look at past years. Really consistent Victoria, market up, down, kind of the same all along. So fewer sales, more new listings, active inventory is up. And if you've been looking for a house in Victoria, it's probably the most you've had to choose from in, 10, 15 years. So good news for buyers. And you can see in the stats here, 3,400 active listings, up a reasonable amount versus last year. And versus the 5-year, essentially since April, it's been up about 60%. A lot more for buyers to choose from finally in Victoria. And of course, if there's more active inventory, buyers are going to have a little bit more ability to negotiate. Looking at market balance here, 5.5 months of inventory, that's the upper end of the range for a balanced market. Looking at sales to new listing ratio, that saw a fairly sizable increase month on month. Now, that is not that uncommon this time of year. For the most part, fairly similar to last year's numbers. And then looking at the sales to active listing ratio, that's continuing kind of a small trend up, meaning that the market is tightening up, still below last year, but it's definitely not in buyer's market territory right now in Victoria, according to all of these metrics. Now I want to talk about prices. So we started the year in Victoria at $870,000. We're at $876,000. 2 months left to go. I'd say high likelihood we see the benchmark price drop below $870,000, which would mean we'd have a year-over-year trend down for prices. And if that happens, we'll probably also end the year with a year-over-year decrease. It's going to be really close to see where things end up. Looking at the year-over-year price increases, they're getting smaller every single month as we've gone through the year. Now, you're watching this video because you're probably thinking about buying a house, but you don't want to buy when prices are declining and get a bad deal. And that's where I'd like to help you out by handpicking a great real estate agent from my network to help you make that purchase. If you look down in the description of this video, there's gonna be a link to my calendar where you can book me in for a buyer's consultation where I'm gonna give you a call, learn about what's important to you, and then handpick a fantastic agent for you from my great network. Now let's get back to the video. In Vancouver, they've had prices declining all year long, but the price declines actually might be increasing. So we're gonna look at the stats here and do a dive, kind of see what's going on. And you guys can figure out if this is a good time to buy in Vancouver, or should you wait a little longer for home prices to drop more? If that's what you're planning, let me know in the comments below. So about 2,250 homes sold in a month. down versus last year. Now, last year they had a weird outlier. The October had a really strong month of sales, kind of more of a one-off there. You look through previous years, 23, 22, obviously this would actually be a better year than those. Those were not great years, but a better one. And then looking at other years, you've got 2018, more sales than 2018, more sales than 2016. So in terms of like the last decade, this actually kind of lines up in the middle, kind of range. So not a really great month for sales, but also by far not the worst. Now, in terms of the total year, you have 2 months left. Probably going to see home sales end up around 24,000 for the year in Vancouver. And if that happens, it would be the worst year for home sales in the last 10 years in Vancouver. Looking at new listings, kind of two things pop out to me here. First one is almost 1,000 fewer homes listed for sale in the month versus the previous month. Not uncommon to see a drop, but that's a real sizable drop in new listings. A lot of people have been expecting more new listings in the market. It's just not happening. And then in terms of this, how this month stacks up over, say, the last 10 years, this right now would be the third most new listings for the month in the last 10 years. With 2 months left in the year, looks like we're going to see about 64,000 new listings in Vancouver. And if we get there, which looks like we will, that will be the most new listings in the entire year in Vancouver. It would actually beat out 2021, where they had 62,000 new listings. So most likely going to set a record for that this year in Vancouver. Looking at active listings here, and I had an interesting stat in my Toronto video, which I think probably is going to be true for Vancouver. I'll do some more digging for next month and see if this is true. But the last 10 months in Toronto, every single month has been the highest level of active inventory for that particular month. That's on record. And I think if I dug through it here, that actually might be true for Vancouver. So I'm going to see if I can dig up that stat for next month's video. But what I find is interesting here is that the active inventory levels versus last year and the 5-year average has actually been shrinking. So if you look here, for example, taking a look at April, that's kind of the high point here, versus last year, active inventory up almost 40%, up versus 60% versus the 5-year. And then that has continued to shrink and get smaller and smaller. The oddball is this past month, it's up a little bit more versus the 5-year average it was from the month before. Looking at the market balance indicators is interesting. Months of inventory was at 9 the previous month. Now we dropped down to 7.3, still very much in buyer's market territory there. Looking at sales to new listing ratio, it had been well into buyer's market 2 months ago and actually tipped back just barely into balanced market territory. And then sales to active listing ratio, that also increased. So the market tightened a little bit. Now that's relatively typical for this time of year. We had seen it consistently trending down all year and then pick back up here. So the market got slightly tighter, but it's still not, even compared to last year, which was not a strong year, it's still below that as well. So it favors buyers more this year than it did last year. And now let's talk home prices in Vancouver. So we started the year $1.17 million, currently $1.13 million, a substantial decrease just through the course of this year. Obviously big drops year over year as well. In fact, you have to go back to basically 2021 to see a year where there's a lower benchmark price at this time of year. And you can look at the price trend here. It's basically kind of a straight angle down here. We've been down essentially 3% or more since May in Vancouver. Kind of wrapping things up for Vancouver, which has held up better overall than, say, a market like Toronto, which has obviously seen substantial price declines. But in my Toronto video, I talked about maybe there's some argument can be made that they're seeing a little bit of a stabilization as price declines kind of soften a little bit. Vancouver, it's just a straight line down. So let me know, what do you guys think? Where do prices end the year in Vancouver? Do they drop below $1 million before the end of 2025, or do we wait until 2026 to see that? Let me know in the comments.